Okay, let's get started. Hello, everyone. Good evening. 5 minutes to 10 o'clock Sydney time. This is Jintao in Newcastle. Unfortunately, we still have to do this week's lecture through this pre-recorded video clips. I really wanted to see your lovely face in this week, but unfortunately, we still have these technical issues. Nothing really can blame on anyone, but yep. This week we're going to study management, people, and the team, the second chapter. The second chapter of Module 1 is Module 1.2. We're going to look at the motivation, influencing others, the power, and politics. But one step before cover this whole chapter, I really want to remind you guys about our first assessment. Let me just share this screen with you guys. Assessment 1. According to our requirement, its students need to submit a 350 words individual self-reflective summary by 11:55 p.m. Friday, the 25th of October. I might extended the submit date to the 27th, the Sunday night, but make sure that this is the last day. You have to submit your assignment to Blackboard. That will carry 15 marks, total weight of 15% of your hundreds. The instruction says, you are required to write a short reflective report covering the contents in the first 3 weeks, that is, all the modules 1 and the first half of module 2. Here's a specific requirements, the nature of the organization's motivations and the communications. In writing your reflective summary, you should consider the learning sources provided, the respective modules, as well as reading more broadly on the relevant topics. How are you going to write up this self-reflective summary? A short introduction, an analysis of relevant module topics, including their relevance to you and applications, a short conclusion, and reference list. Reference list is very important. If you are not yet familiar with a reference, what should be a proper reference, you might have to equip yourself as soon as possible. In your reflecting summary, you might answer those questions listed here, like what is the content and why is the topic important? How is the topic relevant to you? What has been your past experience in the topical area? And what have you learned from the content so far? It's more like a self-reflective journal. You are writing about your own feelings, your own perceptions towards this course. So it's not really academic ones. Be relaxed and make sure that you submit something by the deadlines, because according to the school policy, there might be late submission penalty applies to your assessment if you submit late. Okay, that is about the first assessment. I need to remind you before we really start this week, because only 2 weeks to go, like literally 10 days. Okay, let's get back to the lecture. This week, again, we'll look at Module 1.2, motivation. In this week, we have 6 learning objectives to cover. First, describe and evaluate the motivation theories. Second, describe the job characteristics models and the way it motivates by changing the working environment, for example, job rotation, job enrichment, and job design. For some students who are very familiar with the human resource management, you might be very familiar with these three terms as well. Job rotation means you just change the working positions, job positions of some of the employers to enrich the diversity of their work. Enrichment, more likely you add more jobs to them. For example, if this guy was doing one component, you ask him to do a second along the production line, the third one, the fourth one, just give them more varieties of this job, more responsibilities. Job design is more like an overall design of the job. What you should do the first, second, the process of the job, and how this job get to be updated along the line, all these kind of things. That is trying to give the employees a diversified choice to enrich the interest of the job, to stop them from getting bored and getting reduced in their productivity. The third one is explain how specific alternative works arrangement can motivate employees. The fourth one is demonstrate how the different types of variable pay programs can increase employee motivation. The fifth one is define power, describe the 5 bases of power. Last one, define organizational politics and describe why policies exist in an organization. The source of the material for this chapter is primarily based on our textbook. You could always go back to the Blackboard to get access to the essentials of organizational behavior. I do believe we have a corresponding Chinese translation that you could purchase in China as well. I do have a copy of it. I think the most up-to-date one is the 14th edition. You might want to look at the chapter 7, the basics of motivation, chapter 8, applied motivation, and chapter 13, power and organizational politics. Let's first define what is motivation. According to the textbook, motivation is defined as the processes that account for an individual's intensity, direction, and persistency of effect towards attaining a goal. That means motivation is someone has the intensity, whether they want to go work along with this direction, and also how hard they want to work along with this direction, work along with this road. That is what we call the persistency. While general motivations is concerned with the effort towards any goal, but in other units, motivation is narrowed to focus on organizational goals only. That is to say, you could say that I have this motivation, how I'm going to motivate my kids to get a better mark. How am I going to motivate myself to get a high distinction in my college study? That is indeed fit the definition of general motivation. But in this unit, when we talk about motivation, you automatically jump into that. Motivation is about organization motivation. Motivate employees, managers to achieve the organization goal. Let's see, lots of this. I put 3 earlier theories of motivation here. First one is the hierarchy of needs theory, introduced by Abraham Maslow. Second one is the theory X and the theory Y, introduced by Douglas McGregor. And last one is the two-factor theory, introduced by Frederick Hansberger. These 3 are probably the most famous theories in human resource management. management principles and also in these organizational behavior theories. So since we are in the postgraduate level, it's master level, so I'm not going to introduce those theories in a very detailed manner, but I still have to cover some basics of that. If you're interested in, if you need to cover this, you were not covered before, you might just simply put these words into some search engines, and a lot of information, abundant of information will come out, give you a very comprehensive explanation of those theories. I'm not worried about that. Just touch some basics of these three theories. First one is the Maslow. We call that Maslow's hierarchy of needs theory. Sometimes we call the Maslow's pyramid because it looks like a pyramid here. Got 5 different levels. The basic one is physiological, like the food, water. Second one is the safety, shelter. You need a house, you need a home. The third layer is a social, like you need your friendship. You need someone to talk to. And the fourth level is esteem. Sometimes we'll call the self-estimation. And the top one is self-actualization. Well, this theory, Maslow started a group of monkeys and get this result like around the year 1950s. It was really a big deal when it was first launched into the academia. Everyone just like, okay, we people will behave something like that. But there's a lot of criticism against with this pyramid as well. For example, Maslow was the first claim that human beings only get the lower level of the hierarchy needs satisfied, then it can move into the second level. That says, if we want to be self-actualized, we might need to have the social fulfillment. And if we want to the social fulfillment, we might need the safety and the basic food, water, these kind of things. So there's only one line from the bottom to up. But some other scholars argue that that might not be necessarily true, because you might not yet have the social connections with others, but you want to do your self-actualization or self-estimation or whatsoever. Nowadays, this is the basic theories with both pros and cons. One of the good ones, just keep that in mind. We jump over this theory X, theory Y. I didn't provide any PPT slides to explain that, but it's quite simple. Just Douglas McGregor divided people, categorized them into 2 different categories. So one category people, the basic assumption is there is a certain group of people they don't want to work. There's laziness in the nature. And there's another group of people, the group Y, the intrinsically they want to work, the self-motivated. It doesn't mean one person definitely belongs to the theory, belongs to the X group or the Y group. It really depends on what circumstances, in what situation. So the contingent theory is trying to argue that the theory X, theory Y is too absolute. You say one person, they were naturally don't want to work, but they might lack of motivation or something. That would be the main debate to the theory X and the theory Y. So I'll just skip that. And this PPT slides is a comparison of the 2-factor theories. So 2-factor theory, I'll just enlarge it. Also known as Herzberg's motivation hygiene theory, or the dual factor theory, which states that there are certain factors in the workplace that cause job satisfaction, while a separate set of factors cause dissatisfaction, all of which act independently of each other. Let's look at this chart on the left-hand side. These are the factors which lead to extreme satisfaction, such as achievement, recognition, work by self, responsibility, advancement, and growth. That is to say, these factors makes you feel your job is a good job. For example, I'm working in the university. As Jintao, I have this achievement. I will be recognized by the society, by my colleagues, by my students, by my friends. I work by myself. I don't have a supervision. So, for example, now I'm doing this lecture to you guys at home in the midnight of Sunday. So without supervision, just work by myself. I'm carrying the responsibility. I'm responsible for your marks, responsible for the quality of the teaching. And I have this advancement. Yes, I'm working towards a senior lecturer, an associate professor, professorship, and that will be a long-term plan for myself and also the growth. But what really makes people think their job is not good are these factors. For example, the policy and the administration, supervisions, relationship with the supervisors, work conditions, salaries, relationship with your colleagues. Some students might say that, okay, I'm very satisfied with my salary. Now, that could be true, but think about this. People never get satisfied by the salary. That means even you are paid good today, but maybe next year you'll think, okay, my salary is a little bit low, I want a raise. And in the next year you will think about, okay, I want another raise. So for this category, especially the salary, the relationship with the colleagues, you never get really satisfied. So that is the two-factor theories of the motivation. Just keep this in mind, the basic patterns. By these small units, and what we're talking about was the hierarchy of needs by Maslow. We do have different levels of needs, and people are different in nature. Some likes to work and some doesn't want to work. And we do have the two-factor theories, which is more talk about the working conditions. Is more related to the work itself. That is to say, these three different theories are from a different perspectives talking about how are you going to motivate your employees. The next one is the contemporary theories of motivations. Yes, I know I'm talking about some theories because they're so important. The first one is the self-determination theory. Self-determination theory. I'm going to provide you some reading materials to the blackboard, such as I'm downloading these paper. If you could see that, this is a article, self-determination theory. Excuse me. A macro theory of human motivation, development, and healthy. So I'm going to attach this report. This is journal article. It's a short one. It's not a proper academic journal article, but it's published in a good journal. I'm going to attach this to the blackboard so you could have a read. Self-determination theory is emerged in the 1980s. It's a quite new one. It's a study focused on the intrinsic motives. So make it simple. Self-determination theory is centered on the beliefs that human nature shows persistent positive features, which is against with the theory X and the theory Y I mentioned before. That is trying to see the human beings always trying to show the effort, the agency, and the commitment in their lives, and that the theory called inherent growth tendencies. People also have the innate psychological needs that are the basis for self-motivation and personal integrations. It's quite a up-to-date theory. The second one, the goal-setting theory. That is very easy to understand for the goal-setting theories. It's just like I set a goal and ask the employees to chase the goal. You normally see this kind of situation in the organization that the leader comes out and says, okay, everyone, let's achieve like 5% increase of our sales next year. That is a goal-setting theory. And sometimes your manager will say, or you will say to your subordinate says, okay, if we achieve the sales revenue to $10,000 or something, of course, larger than that, we will have some benefit, we will have some salary rise or something. That is a goal-setting theory. And it's mostly applied to the primary schools, especially when you're trying to train your kid. You will tell them, okay, little boy, if you achieve really good marks, I will give you something for exchange. That is a goal-setting theory, which is good, but sometimes this theory being criticized by scholars says that is a kind of exchange theory. You are using something good to exchange for their efforts, which always go back to this part of the theory X theory, to this part of the two-factor theory. Remember, when we were talking about the two-factor theories, salaries or some economic benefit incentives always fall into the category that will lead to the dissatisfaction. That is to say, goal-setting theory, if you use that properly, it might work and increase the productivity. But you might be very careful with what you're going to exchange for the employee's performance. Sometimes your incentives, like the salary, the economic benefit, might fall in the category which makes them extremely unhappy. The self-efficacy theory. Self-efficacy theory is according to I think his name is Bandura. It's one very famous psychologist. Bandura, who was originally proposed these concepts, which is a personal judgment of how well one can execute courses of actions required to deal with some situation. Is make it easy. Self-efficacy theory is how you are going to manage a certain situation. The fourth one is equity theory or organizational justice. It's a very important one and a very practical one as well, because we always compare with others in the organization, in the society, trying to seek for the equity moment or equity thing, that the equal rights. Equity theory is trying to talk about this kind of justice. For example, I was talking about why the salary in China are not good at this moment, because the salary, for some occupation, they need to be paid really well. For example, a university lecturer in China. Yes, they have relatively higher salary, but it's not really comparable to the developed country, not even Hong Kong or Taiwan. the other part of China. So that created a big problem that lots of good scholars, they don't want to go back to China and find a university and to find a job in there. So myself is this kind of example, that because the salary there was not good. But why? The university got a lot of money in China, but why they could simply raise up the salary? Because of the cultural justice, the country level organizational justice. Let's say if the university rise the salary of the lecturers, what would be the reactions of the whole society? Then every department, every sectors, every institutions, they think, okay, say the university already increased the salary, and which salary could even compare to the salary in Hong Kong at the university, or in Taiwan, or in North America, which is not possible at this moment, but let's assume that. Then the other sectors in the society in China will try to match this kind of salary. You will see that, okay, they got this high salary, we want the salary as well. That will cause a big problem, because not every department needs or have this kind of economic benefit and don't have the capacity to pay their employees. But that will be a consequence of the organizational justice or the equity theory. And the last one is the expectance theory. Is if the outcome will fulfill your assumptions, it will fulfill your expectancy. For example, it is really highly related to the goal setting. So goal setting theory. For example, you were talking to your kid, says, little kid, if you could achieve the highest marks in your class, I will buy you a Transformer toys as a reward, for example. Then the little kids will have this kind of assumption or this of expectancy that if I could get the highest marks in the organization, in the class, I could get that as a reward. But if the outcome doesn't really fit the kids' expectancy, then the kids will not be motivated no more. So we were talking about the motivation theories, the contemporary ones, and as well as the traditional ones. Based on the traditional theories, we have these contemporary theories came out. It is important for students to understand the basic motivation theories to be successfully motivate the employees. Again, since we are in master level, what we call the postgraduate level course, I'm not going into a very detail of each of these theories, just listed them down, and you could check and you could study these theories online from any of the searching engines, textbooks, and some external reading materials. I will also provide some reading materials to the Blackboard as well, so please just check the Blackboard regularly. Well, in the previous topic, we were talking about what motivation is, what are those earlier motivation theories, and what are those contemporary motivation theories. In this topic, we're going to talk about applied motivations. First, we start with job design. The job design is a systematic thing. It's not just the one thing we call the job design. It contains the job rotation, job enrichment, and the relational job designs. Here's the guidelines for enrich a job. On the left-hand side, we have the suggested actions. For example, the combined tasks, form natural work units, establish client relationships, expand jobs vertically, open feedback channels. So these suggested actions will contribute to the core job dimensions like the skill variety, task identity, task significance, autonomy, and the feedbacks. For example, if you establish the client relationships, that will definitely contribute to the feedback because the employee somehow is linked to the customers or clients or the stakeholders. Expand job vertically. That means you are giving the employee more power. Previously, the employee might just only control one production line, and later you ask the employees to do something more, especially vertically. That means doing a little bit part of the job of the manager and doing a big job of his subordinates. That is to expand the job vertically. That will increase the autonomy because the employee won't have to do anything with the approve from the superior. He might have a certain autonomy to do these things by himself. Open feedback channels is very important, and not only the feedback from customers. Also, as a manager, you have to open feedback channels from your subordinates as well, from your employees. You need to know the feedback from the employees, whether that is good or not, whether your employee likes your way of leading, something you did good, some behaviors you did wrong. So, when the employees are not satisfied with their working conditions, the very possible outcome would be the job negligence. They don't want to put 100% or 80% of the effort on the job. They just think, okay, the job is not that good. I just want to do the basic things. That is definitely not good. Applied motivation, the second one, we're talking about the alternative work arrangement, flexi time. That is not very common in China at this moment, but that is a common practice in Australia. Flexi time means you don't have to be, for example, in the office from 9 to 5. You could be in the office during the period from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m., which is 12 hours, but you don't have to be in there for the full 12 hours. In Australia, a contract normally allows each worker to work 38.5 hours per week, which is less than 40 hours per week. So as long as you could work for 38.5 hours, you will fulfill the full-time contract. That's very handy. That means you have to work within the period I just mentioned from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Let's say you want to work 8 full days. You want to work 3 full days from 8 to 8. That is already 36 hours and only 2.5 hours to go. So in the fourth day, you only come in the morning and you will have the whole Friday, Saturday, Sunday all to work. Or you could just split it into all the 7 days. For example, you want to work every morning, Monday all the way to Sunday. As long as you fulfill the requirement of 38.5 hours, you fulfill the requirement of the contract. That is an example of flexi time, which is really important because I'm teaching in a different university at this moment, and university normally provide me this flexi time schedules. So I could work the time I want to work in certain universities. So I still have time to take care of my family, pick up my kids, because as I mentioned, I'm living quite far away from Sydney. That will be a 2-hour, 30 minutes train from my home to my office. So normally I only stay in my office in Sydney for 2 days, and the rest of the time I work from home. That is a different work from the Torrens University. But anyway, that is a good example of flexi time. I'm not aware of this kind of situation happening in China at this moment, but I think this is a really good way to arrange. That could be a really good motivation. I think that would be the future in short time period. And the second one is a job sharing. And some students, colleagues may ask like, well, if we have the flexi time, how about someone come to me and ask me something, but I was not there? If there is any other people could do the job exactly as what I did, yes, and they create something called the job sharing. Job sharing is 2 or more people, multiple people work for an organization for one position. So we could have Lily, Lucy, Emily, 3 people work in different days. For example, Lily work for Monday, Tuesday, Lucy work for Wednesday, Thursday, and we have Emily work for Friday. So they will share a same job. They will share a same email box. They will share all the memo, all the desk positions. So whenever there is customs or inquiries come to their desk, there's always someone sitting there. If a job the previous person cannot finish on time, you could always leave the note that says, okay, in the second day, you need to do certain things. I believe this is a really good approach to allow carol works, and especially that if that could be applied in the society in China, that would solve a lot of unemployment issues. And the third one is telecommunication. Telecommuting. Sometimes we'll call it telecommunication. And exactly what we're doing here is kind of a telecommunication. And we're using all these facilities, microphones. We could do a really face-to-face, kind of face-to-face communication. Zoom is a really good software. Previously, we have the Skype for business, and something very popular in China called WeChat. I do have WeChat as well. So it's sometimes coming very handy. So these are the alternative work arrangements: flex time, job sharing, telecommuting. And the third point of applied motivation would be the pay and benefit. This contains several questions like what to pay. That requires establishing a pay structure, and how to pay is a rewarding system, like rewarding individual employees through the variable pay programs. We have listed here 8 of them for your reference. The piece rate pay is you are paid by how many customers, clients you have been signed, how many contracts you have been signed, or by the piece of products you are making. And second, the metric-based pay is really based on the quality of the work, like the amount of money you have been earning. The third one is bonus, which is extra to the piece rate or the merit base. It's like the external, and everyone in China nowadays is looking for the end of the year bonus. I've heard that was a lot. And the fourth one will be the skill-based pay. It's based on the skill. Australia is a quite society which pays based on the skill. For example, if I'm going for a normal job with a doctor degree, with a PhD degree, I might not easily get a job because according to the Australian some policies, employment policies, you need to pay certain people with certain qualifications a higher amount of money. So sometimes they'll be using the word called overquali. That means overqualification. That means I am just above the requirement they need. So they don't simply hire some people overqualification. That is a skilled-based pay system. Profit sharing is when we make money, we could share the profit we made. Gain shares, a similar thing. Employee stock ownership plan. This is a really good thing. Some companies do share their stocks with the employees. So when the company share goes up, the employers getting richer. So that is a really authentic motivation approach. You don't have to be really much of the stock owned by the employees, but they are really a big fan or solid stakeholders to the organization. They will definitely support the organization because they are linked to this organization in every sense. And the last one is the employee recognition program. It sounds like a little bit difficult to be understood, but in short, as its core, employee recognition is the open acknowledgement and expressed appreciation for employees' contribution to their organization. I can give you a simple example. For instance, if someone did really good for the organization, the CEOs, the managers could send a group email to everyone within the organization says, for example, Jin Tao did a really good today for the organization. He got a really good job. He signed a large contract. He deals with the good complaints, and he come up with the good innovation ideas. He performs good. Normally, we have that kind of a rewarding system. We give the excellent award to some employees by the end of the year. That is a kind of employee recognition program, but more frequently, this can be done by daily basis by the managers. You could simply send an email, send a notification to the HR says someone did good. Just to let the employee know that his contribution has been recognized by the organization. The next topic of this chapter is power. The definition of power refers to a capacity that a person A has to influence the behavior of B. So person B acts in accordance with person A's wishes. The power could be from the father and the son. For example, I have the capacity of influence my 5-year-old boy, and my boy could always behave like what exactly asked him to do. So that is a kind of definition of power. And also we could also see that your manager, or you are the manager, always have the capacity to influence your subordinates, or your manager could have the capacity to influence you. And then you will always do the things, or your employees will always do things as you asked. That is power. So in short, power is a consequence from the influence, from the dependence. I'm putting that word here. So the higher the dependency a person B has towards person A, the higher the person A has power over person B. My little kid has a strong dependency against me, so I have a very strong power. Your employees have a very strong dependency because you are paying he or her the salary, and this is the only job he or she could find. Then they might have to do what exactly you are saying. So the greater the B's dependency on A, the greater the A's power is in this relationship. This topic is very short. We just define what the power is. And then we move to the next topic is the basis of the power. We have the formal powers and the personal power. Formal power would be the coercive power, reward power, legitimate power. The personal power is expert power or the referent power. So please see the attached notes for details. I show you where you can find the attached notes. Okay, if you read here, that'll give you the basic definition of what are those power. Again, since we are postgraduate level lectures, so I'm not going to read through detail of what definition they are, but just trying to clarify that the coercive power basis depends on a fear of the negative result from failing to comply. If it's kind of coming from afraid of bad consequences if you're not obeying such order. Reward power is it's also linked to the expectancy theory. So you're kind of, if I'm following this kind of order, I might get some reward. That is a reward power. And the legitimate power is it's a formal power which has been appointed to a certain position, like you will listen to the police officer's order because they have the legitimate power. They are in the uniform. They are there to protect us or to protect the society. So that is kind of legitimate power. Expert power is if you know someone who really good at something. If you know one of your colleagues from the IT department, they knows the computer. So when he asks you to do something to the computer, you must just naturally follow he or her order because you know they are the expert. Reference power is based on the identification with a person who has the desirable resource or personal traits. So, for example, if we know someone who is a very big person, he has a lot of resource, has the connections, then he might have this reference power. For example, you saw a movie star coming into the classroom, you might just, okay, come over here, I serve you with a chair or this kind of things, because that is a really good example of the referent power. Okay, you launch this. Now we talk about how a manager should use the power tactics. First of all, managers normally have this legitimate power. Legitimacy is kind of relies on your authority position. If you are appointed as a manager of team leader of a organization, you will definitely have this kind of legitimate power. Sometimes this kind of legitimate power is according to the organizational policies or the rules as well. So if the organization says anyone in the organization have the power to stop crime, then the people who stops crime refers to the legitimate power. Second one is a rational power. It's kind of the thing you are ordering someone to do should be reasonable. For example, you found there is a colleague in your office passed out in an emergency situation, and you suddenly stand up and point to some of your colleagues, says call the police or call the emergency, call the ambulance, and you are going to help these people. So that colleague might just follow your order because you are on a rational position. You are giving a rational order. Inspirational appeals, which is developing emotional commitment by appealing to the target's value, needs, hope, and aspirations. Consulting is increased supporting by involving the target in deciding how you will accomplish your plan. For example, you could go to your employee and provide a kind of offer, says, okay, for example, Emily, Jintao here, I got this plan. I want to increase our sales next term. So what would be your best suggestion? What can you give me some of this advice or something? So that is a kind of a consulting. You could use your power to motivate them, because when the managers come down to the employee and ask their opinion, that is also belongs to a kind of employee recognition plan, because employee will think about, okay, well, I was somewhat important because my manager asked me something. Exchange is kind of a rewarding power. That is very important power, because literally we are based on the exchanging theory, because all the business is based on the exchanging theory. And you hired someone, you are creating some goals, or you are paying some economic benefit to your employees. That is all based on this exchanging theory. So exchange is rewarding the target with a benefit or favor in exchange for following a request. Ask them to follow your order. Personal appeals, like ask for compliance based on friendship or loyalty. For example, as a manager, you ask someone to do something for you. It's not just like a personal thing, it's like a company thing. You could ask, say, Bob, you have been with me working in this organization for 10 years. I consider you as a really good friend. But now you see the organization has been undertaking some damage. The organization got been through some difficulties. Would you please do me a favor of doing something? That is a kind of personal appeals. Invitations is using flattery, praised, or friendly behaviors prior to making a request. Similar to the personal appeals, you could come down to your employees, being friendly, and ask them to do you favors. Definitely, I'm not mean when I'm saying do you a favor is doing your professional favor. It's not doing a personal favor. If you ask your employees to do something which is outside of their job description, especially relate to your personal affairs, then that is kind of abusing power. It's a different topic. Normally, you shouldn't do that, right? The pressures using warnings, threats to ask the employees to do something, like if you don't do that, you are fired. I want this document to be on my desk by 12 o'clock. If you are not doing that, you're fired. Again, it's a strength, it's a power. You could use some time. It really depends on, it has both pros and cons. Collations is enlisting the aid or support of others to make the target to agree. For example, you are trying to build up a relationship with all the other colleagues except for the target ones. You can talk to the target that says, see, ladies agree with us, Bob is agree with us, and everyone is on board. Why you are not doing that? So that is a collations. It's a kind of a strategy that is a quite a common practice in China. Just read through all these 9 different power tactics, and I think that primarily covers all of the situation when a manager should use their powers. But again, as I mentioned, don't abuse power. Abuse power means you are using the power you have to ask someone to do those things which is not related to their job, but a personal favor, which is not right. But still, that is quite common in China at this moment, I understand. But in the long run, managers are supposed to avoid this kind of situation. The last topic we're going to talk about today is the power in action, the politics. Political behavior in organizations consists of activities that are not required as part of an individual's formal roles, but that influence or attempt to influence the distribution of advantages and the disadvantages within the organization. Well, after definition, I think I might need a couple of minutes to explain the definition, because I've been reading some materials both in English and in Chinese version, especially some of the Chinese version explanations of political behavior. I think they have some wrong understanding. Political behavior doesn't mean necessarily the negative thing. It's just a kind of common practice within the organization when managers might use the powers, or whoever has the ability to use the power to influence the others. And the key factor, the essence of using political behavior is over here, is influence the distribution of advantage and the disadvantage, allocate benefit, and trying to, if you want to get someone out of your organization, you might have to play some political behaviors, like you work with people who doesn't like him and build up a kind of group and build up a conflicts and trying to chase him away outside this organization. That is quite common. Actually, according to our textbook, many managers report some use of political behavior is both ethical and necessary. Why I'm saying that, if you're trying to get someone who doesn't work within the organization, for example, he has been in the organization for years, but he or she doesn't really work or contribute or just stay in this organization and waste of a resource, you might be able to use some political behaviors like reading the rules to him, says if you can't meet these things, you are out of this organization, and build up some conflicts, ask the other colleagues to go against to him or her. And this is a kind of use of a political behavior and trying to get rid of him. That doesn't necessarily mean a bad activity. It's just kind of a normal practice within the organization. People are using to achieve some outcomes, and again, which is more related to the distribution of advantage and the disadvantages. Okay, that is the power in action. But again, I want to mention is the political behavior. We don't have a common definition of what a political behavior is. I believe in China, political behavior within the organization is quite common, especially for the enrolled students who already the senior or the middle-level managers of the organization. You might have been using some of these political behaviors for allocating or distributing advantages or disadvantages, or you are one of the victims being applied with this political behavior. But trying to think about this way, why these kinds of behavior, political behavior has been applied to you, or why you are going to apply this kind of political behavior to some others, there must be a reason. The reason is you are going to use your power to distribute the advantage or to spread the disadvantage to someone to achieve a certain purpose or certain targets. If the target is necessary, the political behavior then is appropriate. You need to use some method to manage the organization. So again, political behavior is not good or bad. It depends on how you're going to use it. Yeah, that is the reality in the real world what happened. So just find our textbook and read the section about the reality of policies, of politicals. And that is quite common, no matter within a country, management, or within the organization, even within the class, that is quite common. Okay, the very last PPT slides is how do people respond to organizational policies? If there is too much stress and too many of the politics, and then the people might not feel very comfortable within this organization. So the organizational politics may threaten employers, then the employee may decrease the job satisfactions, increase the anxieties and the stress, and increase the turnover. That means we just leave this kind of job and reduce the performance. And okay, if I can't leave, I just don't want to do any job and to just let it be what it is. Even I saw there was something might have some potential problem, I just don't crack it because of this politics within the organization. So sometimes we call that office politics as well. I can give an example. So one of my previous employment was in one of the institution, high institution in Sydney. I was teaching international students. The main reason I left the job, not only me, so we have at least 10 academics in that office. The main reason for 6 of them left that institute, including myself, is because the newer boss, the newer manager of that institute, trying to use a different way to manage people. He trying to build up alliances and get away of the people he don't like. Then the organization was not a good organization anymore because the atmosphere become a lot of tense within that atmosphere, and the people feel the conflicts every day within the organization. It's not comfortable. So if you have the ability to leave, 6 of us just left the organization. I believe whoever remain within the organization are not really performing. They don't want to be the one being targeted by the new manager. So when the new manager use this kind of political activities to get rid of the people he don't like, he could easily hire the people he likes or rehire some new ones. When the new people get into the organization, those people are his people. That means because he recruited them, naturally these people will carry certain amount of loyalty to him. Then so in short, he's kind of using these kind of political activities, distributing the benefit or disadvantage, getting people he don't like away and trying to hire people of his own. Then the organization will be totally controlled by him. Again, I'm trying to see that now that organization is not bad at all. It's performing well. So I'm saying he's using this kind of sometimes negative behaviors, but once he know what he's doing, he could still do a very good job in this sense. It doesn't necessarily to be 100% negative, but if you use that wisely, properly, it still can create benefit for the organization. All right, that is the context for this week. Thank you very much for listening. As you could see that the time behind me is already 1 o'clock. So I started this recording like 10 o'clock. I did a little bit editing about the video to feed for 1 hour lecturing. Doing a pre-record recording is not that easy. I didn't know that before, but I sincerely hope that I could see you guys in person. Okay, well, kind of in person next week. Wish you all the best. Jintou here in Newcastle, Australia. I see you next week.